News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and now 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
The numbers are in, and they are down. Good morning, everyone. It's Montana Morning. It's Wednesday, March the 4th, 2015. Right now we have a clear sky, 12 degrees above Missoula, above zero, here in Missoula, and spring is coming, ladies and gentlemen. All right, our newscast this morning is sponsored by Dig It Excavating, bringing 30 years of excellence to every job. Call 214-4292 or visit digitmontana.com. The numbers are in for spring enrollment at the University of Montana, and they are down from a year ago, with a total of 12,922 students enrolled. Vice President for Integrated Communications, Peggy Kaur, has more.
For spring semester, we have released the numbers. We were expecting a decline, and the decline is about a 4.7% overall decline from where we were in the spring a year ago.
Kaur says officials are looking at enrollment numbers over the long term.
When we're turning the enrollment picture around, it's a long-term process. So because we had several years of smaller incoming enrollment, those smaller classes have to move through the 4+ years of education they have here.
At Missoula College, spring head count was 1,859 students, a 10.9% decline compared to a year ago. U of M officials believe the robust Montana and national economies have affected MC enrollment, along with the fact that several programs are currently at capacity. A 74-year-old Libby man is denied charges that allege he shot another man to death in his living room, covering his body with a blanket and not calling law enforcement. The Flathead Beacon reports Henry Carl Schroeder pleaded not guilty Monday to deliberate homicide in the January 31st death of 38-year-old Thomas Veloz. Kimberly Ann Patterson, Veloz's ex-girlfriend, faces a charge of tampering with evidence. Charging documents say Patterson went to Schroeder's house January 31st. At about 8 p.m., Schroeder says Veloz barged into his home, threatened to kill him, and then grabbed Patterson by the arm. Schroeder told investigators he went into his bedroom, grabbed his gun, and shot Veloz. Montana Governor Steve Bullock will be back in Missoula today, this time to speak at St. Patrick Hospital about Medicaid expansion. Bullock's communications director, Dave Parker, says he'll be focusing on how Medicaid expansion would affect a hospital's bottom line.
One of the most pressing problems with the fact that we've not yet expanded Medicaid coverage is the cost to hospitals in uncompensated care. So the hospitals have to treat folks, but if the folks aren't able to pay, then the hospitals have to eat those costs.
Parker says some hospitals are actually at risk of closing because of uncompensated care.
Particularly in our rural hospitals, it's threatening them then to a point where they're going to have to close their doors. So Governor Bullock wants to talk about that. He wants to talk about the need to bring our federal dollars home back to Montana and expand coverage for folks in Montana who don't have it.
Bullock has been visiting hospitals across the state to try to make the case that expanding Medicaid to 70,000 Montanans would be a boon to Montana. A Whitefish man charged with shooting at 2 motorcyclists during a road rage incident last August has reached a plea agreement that recommends he be sentenced to 10 years under the supervision of the Department of Corrections. The Flathead Beacon reports 35-year-old Christopher Robert Schoen entered an Alford plea to assault with a weapon during a February 27th hearing. Under such a plea, the defendant does not admit guilt but acknowledges prosecutors do have enough evidence to gain a conviction. Montana's insurance commissioner plans to sign on to a national investigation of Anthem Insurance after a data breach put millions of customers at risk, including thousands of Montanans. Communications Director for Commissioner Monica Lundeen, Jennifer McKee, says the data breach occurred back in February.
As the investigation into the breach has continued, we recently learned that as many as 48,000 Montanans could have been caught up in the breach, and we certainly wanted Montanans to know about it and to know how they could protect themselves, protect their identity if they were involved.
McKee says Anthem has set up a special website to answer questions and assist customers who may have been affected.
Anthem has set up a website called anthemfacts.com. There's information there on how people can get a credit watch. They set up a credit watch system, and it's easy to use. They want to make it as easy as possible for people to access that service.
The number for the State Insurance Commissioner's office is 1-800-322-6148, and there are links to both Anthem's website as well as to the Montana Insurance Commissioner on our story that's logged on our website at newstalkkgvo.com. Back in 2009, the Columbia Falls Aluminum Company went offline. Many of the 300 or so employees had hoped for the plant to come back on. However, an announcement by company spokesman Haley Baudry yesterday puts the final nail in the coffin.
Well, the aluminum plant has announced today that we are closing the plant permanently, and we're going to proceed with demolition of some of the structures at the plant. We've been struggling for 5.5 or almost a half years to get it reopened since we curtailed production.
Baudry says the plant closure has nothing to do with recent calls by Governor Bullock for the plant to be put on the EPA's national priorities list as a potential Superfund site. The problem has to do with the spot price of aluminum.
The price of aluminum is down to low levels. It doesn't appear that there is much opportunity in the future for the price of aluminum to come back significantly. It's an old plant. The longer it's down, the more expensive it is to get it revamped and restarted.
A few decades ago, the Columbia Falls aluminum plant employed over 1,500 people. In recent years, employment has dwindled to less than 300. 5 environmental groups have filed a lawsuit against the federal government challenging its authority to kill endangered wolves in Washington state. The lawsuit was filed yesterday against the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services program. The lawsuit contends federal law requires the USDA to prepare full environmental impact statements before it can hunt and kill wolves in Washington. Wolves were hunted to extinction in Washington in the early 1900s. Speaking of wolves, the 2014 and 15 wolf trapping season ended Sunday here in Montana, and the number of wolves captured this season were much lower than last year. According to Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks Regional Wildlife Manager Mike Thompson, trapping numbers were down in western Montana as well.
We had 24 trapped this year. Additional ones were killed by hunters, but 24 trapped, and that's compared to 32 trapped last year so far. Well, actually, the trapping season's over, so that would be a total. Thompson
says weather played a big role in the decreased harvest.
This year was really tough conditions for trapping. You remember how hard the snow was crusted there for a long time, and then it would freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw, and that just wreaks havoc with your equipment out in the field as people are trying to get the trap to fire when something steps on the pan.
So far, 204 wolves have been shot or trapped statewide. That's about a 10% drop compared to last season. Our Newstalk time is 6:10.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Plenty of sunshine today with our high temperatures topping out in the upper 30s and low 40s. Tonight, lows will drop back into the low 20s. We'll see a nice warm up Thursday through the weekend with highs Friday and Saturday in the 50s. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for KECI 13.